for.
Qatar in the Middle East. Under the blazing desert sun, a white building gleams. It sits on the campus of a huge university. The building was designed by a two-person architecture team known as CAT, Silicanth and Associates Tokyo. CAT have designed buildings of all kinds in Japan and around the world. They've worked on homes, libraries, museums, and more. Most of their work involves designing educational facilities. The first one they were involved in designing 20 years ago was an experimental open school. They wanted to create an educational space where children and teachers could freely express themselves.
We root our design process in places that encourage vibrant individuality. We call it activity design.
CAT's educational buildings showcase this philosophy.
Hi, my name is Yusuke Kushima. I'm a Japanese architect. I'll be hosting this program. Today, we are in Qatar, Doha. This is an education city. It's very energetic. Right in the middle of the desert, you can see many buildings as a school. And the architect that we will be introducing you today is a school specialist. They have created many schools around the world. They are Kojima and Akamatsu. They call themselves Silicanth Associates Tokyo.
This is Education City on the outskirts of Qatar's capital, Doha. About 20 school buildings occupy this 13-square-kilometer site. Education City is home to Qatari universities, as well as outposts of 6 leading U.S. universities, including Cornell and Georgetown. In 1997, Qatar launched a national project to develop human resources for the country's future. One result is this vast campus where over 1,000 students, Qatari and foreign, pursue their studies. The building that CAT designed for the campus was completed in 2003. Here, students take a general English language curriculum before advancing to specialized studies.
Here is the Liberal Arts and Science building. At the back, you can see this large white building, very strong, and the contrast with the blue sky and the strong sunlight coming through. A strong patterns of work on the facade. You can see that the patterns are working in a repeating direction. And some of the openings show that there's another exterior at the wall. Wow. So here you see the exterior building and the exterior of the real building. So this in-between space is working as a buffer. The sunlight is protected from the outside.
Daytime temperatures routinely top 50 degrees Celsius in this desert nation. Buildings here can undergo rapid rises in interior temperature. So CAT designed this building with an additional shell wall outside the building's structural exterior to shield it from the sun.
Hello. Hi.
Koshima visited CAT's offices in Tokyo to talk about their design process.
Obviously, Qatar is hot, and it's hot because of the sun. We were in this head-to-head battle against the sun, but with clever design, we thought we could create something great.
We put a great deal of thought into how to deal with the sunlight. Direct sunlight there is extremely intense, so we looked into ways of diffusing the light before bringing it indoors.
CAT wanted to make the building's interior bright and airy. They set out to do this by harnessing the power of the blazing desert sun.
light coming through from up to bottom. So it's a very bright, very open school.
CAT built a scale model of the building and did a series of experiments to study the angles at which the sunlight would enter. In order to regulate the light admitted into rooms, they placed skylights with aluminum shades in geometric designs. Direct sunlight through the skylights bounces off the aluminum and is scattered at various angles, creating diffused light. This gives the building the kind of gentle, natural lighting that CAT had hoped for. Aluminum shades are also used in the interior. As light passes through the intricate geometric pattern of the screen shade, a beautiful play of light and shadow is created in the interior. The aluminum shades also serve an additional function.
From up and down, you can also see the activities of students walking across and enjoying the space in many different ways. And this is something very important, that instead of having just a wall or a glass wall which is 100% transparent, this creates this soft screen which is connecting towards the people upstairs and downstairs in a very visual way.
This is Qatar's first co-educational university, a rarity in the Muslim world. In many parts of the Muslim world, women are taught to conceal their bodies from the gaze of men. These shades serve as visual shielding to protect women's modesty.
There's a different sensibility in Qatar about controlling view lines than you find in the typical Japanese setting that we're used to. I think we were able to create a layer that screens off views, but slightly, not completely.
Making the shades as solid walls would have closed off the space too much. These shades preserve the open feel while preserving the modesty of Muslim women.
Very unique because it's not all visible. It's also kind of closed. It's not really open. I think if it was all open, then the student will be distracted from the others. Yeah.
The pattern that was used for the shades and the outer wall is actually a traditional Islamic motif. These kinds of geometric patterns are often found in the traditional Islamic architecture of Qatar. The design offers the students who hold the future of Qatar in their hands, a constant reminder of their culture.
When the project was completed, the local people who helped us said it was actually a bit hard to admit that this design was conceived by a Japanese person, a foreigner, rather than by one of their own men. We really do love the desert, and we love Islamic culture.
They gave you some very high praise.
The outer walls also are decorated with the geometric pattern. And the inner side is painted yellow, so that when the building is lit up at night, yellow light seeps out through the slits. This creates a beautiful geometric pattern glowing in the darkness. CAT is made up of 2 architects. In the 1980s, Kazuhiro Kojima helped start a firm of 6 architects. Kazuko Akamatsu joined later. In 2005, the 2 reorganized into CAT. They have designed buildings ranging from residences to museums. One constant theme of their work is spaces that are open and feel well lived in. They also strive to create buildings that are flexible enough to accommodate creative uses. One project in particular was a turning point for the two architects. Utase Elementary School in Chiba, just east of Tokyo. This school has no fence around it. It fronts directly on the street, and members of the public can access the property. Why did they choose an unfenced campus? The school was built in 1996 as the Tokyo metropolitan area was expanding and new suburbs were springing up in Chiba. The local government commissioned CAT to create an elementary school that would also act as a gathering place for the new community's residents. The mayor of Chiba had promised an education revolution. Inside the walls of the school, there would be an open layout. At the time, most Japanese schools had separate classrooms connected by hallways. CAT upended that conventional model, and they took inspiration from a famous artwork. Children's Games by Peter Bruegel the Elder. It depicts kids playing, however and wherever they want.
Whenever we're asked to design a school, we always show our client Bruegel's Children's Games. We don't want to design a building that will hamper the motion of children. Instead, the building should lead children from activity to activity.
Their initial concept was a space in which children could circulate freely around the school. To do that, they eliminated classroom walls and the distinction between classrooms and hallways. The idea was that this would get the children active and engaged. Then they conducted a simulation of how children actually move around. The dots overlaid on the map represent children moving through the school, to the library, to the playground. This data was analyzed to determine a building structure that would allow children to move freely.
The building should facilitate children's opportunities to pick their own spot to read a book, to explore, to do all the things they do at school. It's not just a place to play, it's a place to learn. We wanted to support that learning process through architecture.
Based on their simulation, CAT created an expansive, flexible space that allowed free movement between classrooms. Utase Elementary School was praised as a successful example of an open school. It encourages children to be active and dynamic in everything they do. But then in 2001, 5 years after the school's construction, came a horrifying incident. A knife-wielding man invaded an Osaka elementary school, killing 8 children and injuring 15 others. After this incident, elementary schools nationwide turned their focus to safety. Various strategies were considered to make schools more secure. One effect was that school gates, always kept open in the past, began to be locked up. Security guards were stationed at entrances. Some schools also installed camera systems. Security became the main priority at Japanese school campuses. But Utase Elementary adopted a very different approach to security. Since the campus had no fence, the school put its accessibility to good use by encouraging parents and neighbors to pass through the grounds often. This created a watchful environment to deter would-be criminals. Around that time, due to population growth, CAT was asked to design a second elementary school for the neighborhood. In the wake of the Osaka incident, parents questioned whether open school architecture was still a good idea.
We had a huge number of meetings over this school.
Allowing residents of the area to enter the school grounds makes them more connected to the children, and it makes the children more connected to the neighborhood. It also enables people around the school to keep an eye out. Closing off a campus carries its own risk, we said. We explained our way of thinking to them. It did take time, but in the end, we convinced people.
CAT explained what they had done at Utase Elementary and came up with a solution that parents accepted. They put public passageways through the school. The classrooms are arranged along the passages with many entrances and exits. It's possible to go out of a classroom directly onto one of the passageways.
Of course, we did build in a minimum level of necessary security. We eliminated any dead ends. Even in the event that a criminal entered the building, the children would be able to scatter to safety. They wouldn't be cornered or trapped.
Hello.
Hello.
The two often visit their schools to observe. As they continue to design other schools, they want to see with their own eyes that their open school philosophy is working as intended.
本当に壁がないの。だからすごくさ、気持ちいいっていうか、だから子供なんかもおおらかよ。
自分たちで、自分たちのこの子供を守るっていうか見守るっていうか、その垣根がないんで。
In some ways, this school improves on Utase Elementary, where the absence of walls created noise issues. CAT conducted a computer simulation of how sound would propagate on the first floor of the building. They found that a sound originating at the point in the bottom left would bounce off the walls and ceiling, reverberating through the school. So they placed transparent walls between classrooms in the new school, retaining the open feel of the space while blocking sound. They also fitted special materials that improve sound absorption to all the ceilings. A small room in the middle of the corridor serves as a play place. It also serves to block sound emanating from classrooms. The children's voices don't travel too far. Open schools, the result of incredible design ingenuity, empower children to make free use of their learning spaces.
So here, for example,
In this corner, we have a kind of exhibit. It's about the forest.
it's so important that a space does not suppress imagination. It should stimulate imagination.
This forest zone, created by the children themselves, is evidence that the building succeeded in creating opportunities for creative play.
The children don't think of the classes as split off from each other. They drop in on kids in other classes. They don't really think in terms of, this is my classroom. So the whole grade, the students from all the classes, get along better.
Students freely engage in activities across grade and class boundaries, fostering connectedness. It's a further evolution of the open school concept. CAT has continued to promote open school architecture, winning new commissions along the way. One is this building for RCAST, a research center at the University of Tokyo, Japan's top university. RCAST does cutting-edge research that spans multiple disciplines, including biology, environmental science, political science, and more. The university wanted a building that felt open and labs that researchers would enjoy working in.
They do research in all kinds of disciplines, and in many cases, it's actually confidential stuff they're doing. We couldn't just make everything wide open and glass-walled.
So CAT came up with some alternative ideas. First, they used a large expanse of glass at the entrance. It's a space that succeeds in feeling very open. They also designed a 6-story atrium. The laboratories are all clustered on one side of the atrium, so the other sides can be used to bring in natural light. The corridors connecting the labs are not completely walled in, instead using wooden louvers with gaps between them. Thanks to these louvers, no one can see into the laboratories from below, but light is admitted from above, brightening the space. The atrium serves another important function. It acts as a giant duct, circulating air through all the rooms. Laboratories that have large amounts of delicate equipment must maintain a consistent temperature and humidity. Aiding in this are glass louvered windows. The louvers are installed in several places and controlled by computer. They automatically open and close to regulate ventilation, and the fact that the air circulates through the atrium helps maintain the consistency of the air inside.
Typical laboratories are chopped up into rooms, and all the rooms look exactly the same. But here, the spaces are divided up differently. There are areas to relax in. There's plenty of natural light that gets in. I think it's a great building.
Today we are in Tokyo. This is where they have completed their latest project, an elementary school. Let's take a look inside.
In a quiet residential area in the suburbs of Tokyo stands Tachikawa Daiichi Elementary School, completed in September 2014. About 20 years have passed since Utase Elementary School was designed. More Japanese schools have been built in the open style, and CAT have refined their approach. This is another school they designed that seems to have no walls between classrooms. But in fact, there are mobile partitions. They can divide space up depending on the activity. The partitions are typically closed during class, helping to block noise. CAT made a further proposal, a design feature that would strengthen links between the school and people in the neighborhood.
So you can see we're walking on top of the street. The buildings are connected on top of the street from the school to here. There's another community center. So you can see how the space is all connected. So this is the transparency and the physical connection from space to space, which you can visually see and actually come, which is very rich in terms of sequence.
A bridge over this roadway connects the school building to a community center. Moreover, the library of the elementary school was designed to connect with the local public library. By opening a few movable partitions, the two facilities can be transformed into one large space. The school hopes to have educational projects and social events that get members of the community involved in open learning.
地域の目が行き届き、足を運びやすいという意味では、子どもたちが地域の方に見守られて、来れるかなっていう感じはします。
子どもとそれからこの学習館を利用するいろんな年代の大人がなんて言うんでしょうか、こうちょっと接触するチャンスとかが今までよりは増えていいんじゃないかなと思います。
Architecture is about buildings, of course, and there is a tendency to think of them as simply objects. But what we are trying to do is to design not objects, but events.
Of course, we create spaces using architecture, but we try to visualize the activities that will happen in those spaces as clearly as possible. We want people to use the spaces to do creative things that we didn't even think of. It's very important that there's a dialogue between a space and the people in it.
Architecture should act as a container. It should be ready to absorb, to hold the things that will happen within it. And school buildings show that very clearly. They give you a picture of the activities inside, a picture of how energetic and engaged the children are.
After experiencing Sri Lanka's architecture, I have recognized their main focus is not about creating the shape of the building, but the space itself, which provokes new activity. And in order to do that, the transparency of the building, to have the movement within the building is very important. So the wide spaces and the mixture of blending and having the visual connection is very important. I think that's very special within this new age of architecture, and we have to keep an eye on them.